Yeah, we're hitting it. Good mythical morning, everyone, and happy New Year to all of you that are out there. This is the inaugural, the first broadcast of the new year with El Cuco and yours truly, the one and only guerrilla economist and the man who's the tamale of terror himself, the psychic extraordinaire, the one and only CJ. What's going on, CJ? Happy New Year, buddy.
Hey, Happy New Year, V. It's great to be back. For all of our listeners, Happy New Year. Hope your holidays were filled with fun, excitement, relaxation. But I tell you what, V, it's good to be back, man. It feels like it's been like a month or two.
Bro, this wasn't this Christmas break a long Christmas. It just felt like a massively long Christmas break, bro.
It was. Well, I think in part because I think both holidays hit during the middle of the week, like Wednesdays.
Yeah.
So I think everyone tried to stretch that out just as much as possible, right? So even though the first was like and the second was like on a Wednesday, Thursday, or something like that, I've lost track. Like no one really did anything until the following Monday. It was like a reason I lost track of the days of the week.
Yeah, man. I mean, same here. I lost track of time, and yesterday I was out of office. I had so many things going on, and so that last week was shot. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, after New Year's, who the hell wants to work? Who wants to go into the office? I was like, we'll just start off on this week, and we're back. So I'm happy about that. You know what I'm saying? So.
Oh,
a lot of things going on, Zish.
Lots going on, V. I know you have a lot to say. I'm not exactly sure what you covered over on your Patreon for the events unfolding. I'm extremely disappointed. I really was looking for obviously time in itself, a new decade, potentially a new era of peace. Prosperity. I know mentally I've been, physically I've been conditioning, trying to get ready for things. And my gosh, the events that occurred, just doesn't seem like a good start to the new year, V.
No, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. On the Patreon, I broke down quite a few scenarios with the Soleimani incident, and today on this broadcast, I'll break down more. And folks, if you haven't done so already, join the Frontline. I'm raw and unfiltered over there on Patreon. Things that I could talk about that you just can't talk about on YouTube without having your video pulled down or whatnot. In fact, there's a lot of things going on, Siege. There's a lot of scenarios. This thing is deep, and people don't realize how many layers this is. And CJ, when it's like this, when a situation is this complex, when it's this multifaceted and multi-layered, it requires a certain simian of extraordinary strategic thinking in order to peel back the layers and make sense out of it all.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear you break it down, because obviously, right, the media does their part. They do their part to paint the picture, paint the narrative, control the information, what people know. But behind the scenes, V, there's always a lot more going on. So break it down, bro. Break it down.
Absolutely, man. I'll start with this. We got to put things in context, and one of the most frustrating things for me is you deal with the fact that really the vast swath, the vast majority of Americans have no clue economically what's happening, let alone what's happening, around the world. Most Americans can't find Iran on a map. Most Americans can't find Baghdad on a map. And that's the situation we face. So what is this whole Soleimani thing? Why is it so important? And is this the start of World War III? I mean, you have the fear peddlers that are out there, CJ, saying World War III has been activated. Bend over, kiss your butts goodbye.
Yep.
There's all sorts of imagery. So that's why on this title, I had to throw in Iran and World War III and all that stuff out there just to wake people up a little bit. So the question that everybody has in their minds is, V, is World War III going to happen? The answer is no. There's going to be no World War III. V, is the Strait of Hormuz going to get bombed and shelled and leveled with Iranian missiles that are going to be bristling the coastlines of the Strait of Hormuz, affecting the price of oil? Will the price of oil go to $150 a barrel, $200 a barrel? Will it go, V? Will it go to a price that no one can even pay? Because it'll be just astronomical. The answer is no. No. Okay? There's going to be no World War III. Calm down. Walk yourselves back from the edge. Put down the knife. Move the knife away from your wrist. Empty or drain the tub that you filled with warm water after you were going to slice your wrist, jump in the warm water tub. Stop it. Get some help. Don't do it. Shut off the fear porn peddlers. Here's what's going on. Will there be some sort of a response from Iran? Yeah, there will be. Will it be within the United States? No. Will it be within the Middle East and probably some Middle Eastern targets? Yes, possibly. What are the chances of that happening, V? Maybe 20%. What do you think is going to happen, V, in the greater broad spectrum of what's going to be what's going to play out? Well, what's going to play out is this, okay? Now, people are looking at the strategic blunder that is the whole Soleimani thing, which is, if anybody's seen, have you seen the videos of the funeral procession in Iran for Soleimani? I was, if you haven't followed me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, over at Real Rogue News, and you'll see. I retweeted those videos. Siege, have you seen those videos?
I have, V. I've seen the videos. Yes,
it's incredible. As far as the eye could see, far off into the horizon, you have tens of millions of people in a funeral procession. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. Anybody who says that they're going to be rejoicing, no one's going to be mourning in Iran, because if you believe the lies of Pompous Pompeo, if you believe the lies of the neocons, you would think that no one's going to be crying for Soleimani, number one. If you believe mainstream media, you would think that Soleimani is the world's greatest terrorist. He's not. The guy was very instrumental in knocking out ISIS. He was very instrumental in knocking out Al-Qaeda. He was very instrumental in knocking out Al-Nusra, Al-Jabiba, Al-Kabab. He was also very instrumental in taking out Al-Baba Ganoush and Al-Shawarma, all these various terrorist groups that are out there. And it's pretty interesting to really get a grasp of who Soleimani is. And for me to really expound on this, I'm going to share something that I shared last week over at the Patreon, and that's this. I will have to take you back in sometime in April in 2012. And I've mentioned this before, Siege. I've mentioned this before, maybe a few years ago on a broadcast that you and I were doing. But it goes back to April 2012. Not the broadcast, but the actual bit of information and news. Back in April of 2012, there was a meeting. And that meeting was between the Iranian intelligence officials, the Quds forces, Soleimani, as well as members of the Saudi royal family and Saudi intelligence. Also leading this processional train of characters, of individuals, were terrorist organizations that by proxy were controlled by the Saudis. That will be your Al-Shawarma, Al-Baba Ganoush, the various Islamic nut jobs that were under the Saudi payroll. Okay, the Wahhabi nut jobs. And with the Iranian side, you had Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is not a terrorist organization. Hezbollah is more of a political organization than anything else, and they are anybody who's been on a field of conflict. If you don't believe me, why don't you ask the Golan Sariyat or Sariyat Maktal, which is the Israeli counterterrorism and special forces unit, which is some of the best on planet Earth, how they fared against the Hezbollah guerrilla fighters, which are deemed to be the best in the world. Folks, Hezbollah controls Lebanon. If you want to go to Lebanon right now, Siege, you and I can fly to Lebanon, We can walk into a nightclub in Lebanon. We can knock back some Johnny Walker Blue Labels and party all night, right? And around us will be, modern dressed men and women, men dressed to the nines, women dressed to the nines, the whole 9 yards, and nobody has anything to say because it's not so Islamic over there. You get what I'm saying? In terms of like it's a Muslim country, but it doesn't fit the narrative that many neocons would like to give you about the Middle East, which is like, everybody's in a burqa. And if you show any sort of skin, you'll be shot later, So, that is the the image that's given. So anyway, they had this meeting, Siege. They had this meeting, and they were discussing on how to end the proxy war. They were discussing how to dial it down, how to bring it to a swift conclusion. Because look, the Saudis and the Iranians, the Persians and the Saudis have been fighting for decades, since the early 70s, a proxy war. In fact, the war, the 10 or 12-year war that Iran fought against Iraq, it wasn't just Iraq. Iraq had nobody, right? Iraq was supplied by pretty much the entire NATO and Western world, was supplying, training, and giving funding and logistical support to the Iraqi army, as well as the Saudis were funding and providing material support to the Iraqi army during the Iran-Iraq war that lasted that long. So during that time, Iran wasn't just fighting Iraq. They were literally fighting the entire world at that time. Let that sink in for a second. They were literally fighting the entire world on a conventional sense. That's huge. That's massive. Now, after all this hostilities, okay, they were trying to figure out how to dial this down. Then what happened, CJ, right after April 2012? We're getting into the fall of 2013. What happened? What happened? What derailed this dialing down, this bringing to an end of proxy war for 30 to 40 years? What happened, CJ?
Boom, 9/11.
No, this is 2012.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2012.
Syria,
yes.
Yep. All of a sudden, the Syrian situation happened. All of a sudden, the Mockingbird paid for, in control, and cajoled Western media came out and parroted a narrative that most Americans believed and the most Westerners believed, right? Which is, there's a civil war in Syria. Folks, there was no civil war in Syria. What it was the Syrian civil war was not a civil war. It was an invasion by proxy. Okay? Why? Because a pipeline had to go through Syria. Syria was in the way of the proposed Lebanese, Mediterranean, Israeli, Leviathan pipeline system. Syria was in the way. They had to get knocked off. And so, lo and behold, every single proxy group, again, the same terror groups, Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, the new Al-Qaeda spinoff, the new brand called ISIS, they showed up, right? And then Al-Shawarma, Al-Baba Ganoush, Falafel, they all showed up as well. And you had a Syrian civil war. You had such groups as the Free Syrian Army. They weren't free, they weren't Syrian, and they were not an army. Okay? These were Chechens. These were Jordanians. These were Saudis. These were Yemenis. These were Afghanis. These were Turkmens. These were Uzbeks. Nobody, think about it. That's like, there's an American Civil War, but everybody that's on the other side is a Mexican, a Guatemalan, a Colombian, and a Panamanian. Come on. Right? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So this is the narrative they sent you. So when the Syrian situation took off, that began basically what I call the kickoff party to America's Suez moment. Okay. And for those that don't know, the Suez moment was pretty much the clear line of demarcation, the Battle of Suez with the British Empire. I think towards the end of world. When was the Suez? Was it 48? Oh, let me look this up, Siege. Let me look this up. So I want to put this in proper context. I need more fish oils, man. I need more fish oils. I think it was 53, right? The British Suez War. That was 56. 50. I was going to say 53. Yeah, 56. And the end of 56, October, you have the Suez moment. where the Brits left the Suez Canal zone. There was a war that spilled out over there, and that marked the end of the British Empire. That was it. That was and Syria in 2013 and 14, when the Americans left and the Russian Air Force came in alongside with Hezbollah and the Iranians on the ground. That was America's Suez moment. That was like the clear line of demarcation that the foreign policy that was running roughshod for the last several decades is coming to an end. But alas, we find out on that it's not. It's just died down a little bit. So the Syrian situation got really, really out of hand, and thank God that the Syrians were able to fight back. Thank God the Russians were there. Thank God Hezbollah was there. And folks, let me tell you this: the pictures that I've seen that you will not find on a lot of these retarded websites and these mainstream media nonsense sites out there, right? The pictures I've seen where you see Hezbollah fighters who are Islamic standing in a church with their Christian compatriots, both kneeling, both getting prayed over by the Syrian Orthodox priests, right? The Syrian Christian Orthodox priests, and having prayed over before they go into battle was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Christian and Muslim fighting side by side. It was incredible. It was incredible. It was so incredible. It shattered narratives. It shattered paradigms. And this is the message that people don't want you put out there. And when Hezbollah would liberate villages from ISIS, what was the first thing that the women did, CJ? They took their hijabs and burned them.
Yep.
And now you go to Adlib, you go to Aleppo, go to a swimming pool. There's women in bikinis, man.
And the huge Christmas celebrations they had this
year
were massive.
God.
They were massive in Syria.
Damascus,
everywhere.
Do me a favor. I want to see if you Google pull this up. Type in Iranian or Christmas in Tehran, and then hit image. Watch this, folks. I'm about to blow your mind. We're gonna have an adult conversation.
In Syria or
no, Tehran.
Okay.
Yeah, Iran.
Because
obviously, if they have pictures there, if they have like images or a video.
I'm not sure. Let's take a look.
Christmas in Tehran, Iran. And just hit images. Boom. Look at that. Look at that. Go ahead, click it. Click any one of those images, bro. There you go. Look at that. They're celebrating Christmas. Muslims and Christians together. Did you folks know there's a sizable Christian population in Iran that is free to worship Christ? That is free to have their church services. They've been there for, oh my God, thousands of years. No problems. Do you guys know that there in Tehran itself, there's about 40 to 50,000 Jews that have been living there for thousands of years, and they don't want to leave, even though Israel, the quote-unquote Jewish state, exists? Kind of blows your mind, doesn't it? Do you know women could drive in Iran? Do you know that women could hold office in Iran? They could be running for parliament in Iran. They could own businesses. They can go to university. You see, we backed the wrong country. Rather than backing Persia back in 53, we went ahead and backed in the nut job Saudis. We backed the nut job Saudis and their Wahhabi terrorism. Why? Because it's useful. Because we follow the old British model, which didn't work for the Brits at all. That's divide and conquer. That is using chaos as a tool. And then it didn't work out so well. And so what happened when Soleimani showed up? Now, this is pretty much the end of hostilities. The deep state, the U.S. forces who are basically used as pawns, are finally kicked out of Syria. Okay? And it looked like, ISIS is done, which is ISIS is a CIA, Mossad, MI5 creation. It's a Western intelligence creation. That's what ISIS is. We've seen the Pentagon Papers by Cy Hurst, the newest ones. We see how ISIS was defended and coddled, and they would make sure that they escape and retreat. When the Russians were kicking the shit out of ISIS, the U.S. military made sure that the ISIS had a clear line to escape. That's the God-honest truth, man. That's the God-honest truth. And then on top of that, when all this was done, and it looked like peace and safety was coming out, we seen the multipolar world expanding. We see, all of a sudden Iraq discovering its balls and saying, hey, you know what? Every single parliament member that was elected in the Iraqi elections, CJ. People forgot about the Iraqi elections. The Iraqi elections happened just a few months ago. And then what happened is what? Every single person that won their office were people that were anti-globalist. They were anti-U.S. foreign policy. They were anti-Western in the sense that they don't want the entanglements. They don't want to be used as a proxy. They don't want to be used as a pawn. They don't want the country's resources to be pillaged. They don't want their resources to be robbed. They wanted independence. They want their sovereignty back. And the Iranians were helping to do that. Okay, they were helping to do that. And then what happened is on a peace mission. Okay, this is the craziest thing, CJ. The latest report was that Soleimani was flying into Baghdad to meet with Saudi officials, just like, this is again, CJ, again, they were meeting to wind down hostilities, right? Because what happened at 2012, CJ? What was the end of 2012? What failed from 2010 through 2012? There was something happening in the Middle East that was started by the Western world, that was funded and financed by the Saudis, and it failed. And it was crushed. Why? Because you had opposition on the other side, which was funded and supported by the Iranians, that ended this operation. What was going on? The Arab Spring. Everybody forgets about the Arab Spring. So at the end of the Arab Spring, when it all culminated to a crescendo and it all ended peaceably, thank God, the Iranians met with the Saudis. That gets derailed, and boom, Syria starts all over again. Again, the Middle East is in turmoil. What happens? Well, the Iranians come back in. This time they got their Russian friends with them. They got the Syrians helping out, and they got Hezbollah. They squash ISIS. They start restoring peace in the Middle East, and then what happens? Boom, Soleimani gets killed. And again, the derailment is supposed to happen. Now we're in an interesting spate. We're in a position where, is it going to go to World War III? No. Because I'll tell you right now, CJ, you know what makes the United States dangerous?
What's that, V?
It's not because we have the most powerful weapons on God's earth. It's not because of any of that, because we don't. It's not because we have the most vaunted fighting machine and the most vaunted, powerful army the world has ever seen. No, it's not has nothing to do with that either, CJ. What makes us so dangerous is the very thing that makes us so stupid. It's the very thing that you see the fruits of our stupidity in Libya. You see the fruits of our stupidity in Iraq. You see the fruits of our stupidity in Afghanistan. You see the fruits of our stupidity within our foreign policy. No matter what the hell we touch, we fail on it. Falls apart. We have not won a war since World War II, my friend. And World War II, when you're comparing what really happened, where you had over 20 of the most badass, most heavily equipped, dangerous, battle-hardened divisions from Germany, were all fighting the East on the Eastern Front against the Russians, while the Team B, the bench warmers, were on the Western Front. And to say that the U.S. has won World War II, that's a joke, man. That's a joke. That's a narrative that exists only in the United States. And this is why we need to have a real adult conversation, folks. Because what makes us dangerous, CJ, is this. What makes us so damn dangerous is we are a nation that believes our own narrative. You see, the narrative inventors invented the narrative of exceptional stand. They invented the narrative of, that we're unique and that we're the greatest, we're the best, we're unbeatable, we can do anything we want and we can get away with it, blah 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 blah. They've created a dizzying level of hubris that the mass population believes hook, line, and sinker, Siege. They believe it, hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. Gosh. You said a lot, V. It's all accurate. It's, I've since the Soleimani was taken out, I've been trying to share. I've been trying to say, hey, you know what, let's take a look at this. Let's ensure that we won't be on the wrong side of history with doing this. And since that's taken place, I've been called un-American. I've been called a spick. I've been saying I should move and leave somewhere else. And you know what surprises me, V, is that all this information that people are regurgitating regarding Soleimani, everything that's taken place, is that didn't they like call fake news like less than like 3 or 4 months ago? Everything was fake news. Everything was fake news that they're pumping out. Now, all of a sudden, they want to believe what the media is painting.
Oh yeah.
Picture. Now, are we saying that Soleimani is completely innocent and never harmed a person or anything like that? No, we're not.
But it's war. He was involved in the war. He killed 600 U.S. troops. What? Well, yeah, he killed 600. Oh my God, he killed 600 American troops. Really? How many Iraqis have died over a false invasion?
Well, there's a lot to frame up here in this situation, and that's what I've been trying to assess, and you provide some great perspectives. Now, some of the reporting that's coming out for some very reputable sources, and I think this is something that people need to pause and really think about. Like, think about the pre-election Trump. Think of and I hate to make it specifically about an individual person or party or make this a partisan issue, but it's difficult not to. But if we remember all the conversations leading into who was the most outspoken critic of the original Iraq war, it was Trump. Who was saying that we were sent in with false information during that time period? Who was it that said that we're going to pull our troops from Syria, that we're going to pull our troops out? And time after time again, the deep state has came after Trump with this. Now, I don't know if this is accurate. This could be speculation. However, Pepe Escobar, who's very, very reputable analyst, journalist, he had put out that he received information from an intelligence source that the House, the reason why that this strike took place at all was because Trump was strong-armed into it. He is saying that the intelligence sources revealed that Senate neocons, and we knew who they are, Lindsey Tickle Me Fancy Graham, came forth and said, listen, and it could be very well, if you think about why the House hasn't passed along the articles of impeachment to the Senate, is because they're being used as a bargaining chip. They're saying, hey, listen, you didn't launch the war against Iran that we wanted when they made up that they blew up something or they took over some oil thing. You didn't do this. Either you're going to start playing ball with us and allow our intelligence to take over foreign policy, or you will be impeached in the Senate. We will get the votes to impeach you regardless. And so that's one factor to consider, is that Trump was strong-armed in this. And those that are advocating and supporting this assassination, you're actually supporting the deep state now, because this was a deep state operation. Think about it for a minute. If you really look hard and take the emotion side of all the factors, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, everything else like that, take a look at the original candidate Trump that came forth and talked about de-escalation in the Middle East. Think about those scenarios that occurred, and a lot of people aren't factoring. Now, I don't believe the entire whole thing that, there's even people that are saying that, hey, look, that whole Epstein thing, that there's videos and all that, and they leverage that against Trump. I'm not saying that at all, but I don't think this action made a whole lot of sense. And then the other aspect too, V, is that people are saying, well, gosh, we knew exactly, think of how our intelligence agencies, how superior they are, that we were able to launch this precision strike and everything. Well, now there's news coming that Soleimani was invited by the intelligence services to this meeting. We invited him. We specifically invited him to this scenario. We knew exactly where he was going to be. There was no intelligence gathering. We invited him to this meeting. And apparently what was going on, in which, again, the deep state does not want, was apparently they were working to broker a truce, to broker a peace deal between Iran and the Saudis. We know that the Saudis have been, pivoting, away from of U.S. influence, and the deep state actors and players are not going to allow this. So I'm just asking for those people who are hardline that I fully support this strike. Think of rules of engagement. Think of the Constitution in terms of the executive level, in terms of who is capable of launching war, whether you agree who's in office or not. Okay. Whether you agree or not, do we really want one individual person having the capabilities of doing that? And I'm not the only one that's advocating that. So I think that that's something that we need to consider. There's this whole concept, this idea in regards to the biblical aspect of this, in regards to the great coming war. I know at one time that W talked a lot about Hezbollah and those things are escalating. We still have to be mindful of this, and I really think that even more sign of what may potentially be happening, that the administration is not in control of foreign policy, was the fact that the Iraqi parliament passed a resolution to kick out all foreign troops out of Iraq. And what happened? The actual commander in charge of Syria and everything forces, there was a letter drafted. There was a letter sent out and sent out to the Iraqi parliament. I can't remember the guy's name in charge, saying, hey, we will begin the process of removing Iraqi troops. And then who comes forth? Pompeo. And who's the other guy that came forth and said, wait a minute. We put that letter was sent out on accident. We did not send that letter out. There was someone else. Okay, well, who the hell is dictating foreign policy in America? Who is it? No one can answer that question right now, because it looks like a cluster F, because we don't. You mean to tell me that we're going to put a letter out and send it to a government saying we're vacating and leaving, and here's our plans. We're going to be taking, extra precaution, leaving flights at night. We'll be in the airspace a little bit more, and then the State Department's going to come out and say, well, you know what, we really didn't mean to send that letter. That was just a draft. You tell me. I don't get it, V. It's messed up. It really is.
Man, it's beyond messed up, and that's the problem. You see, the foreign policies is predicated on wealth extraction and wealth extracting what? Fleecing the American taxpayer. That's what it's for. And here's the problem, Siege. Okay, here is the problem. Okay, this country has never suffered a continental war with a technological peer. Has never suffered a continental war with a technological peer. Never happened. People say, well, what about, Civil War? Doesn't really count. You got people that were of the same culture, the same background, with the same, with pretty much the same, upbringing, fighting each other. Doesn't really count. And the casualties are still too small concerning some major conflict. Then they talk about the War of 1812, which was really nothing. By 1813 or 1814, the Brits burned Washington, D.C., and we repelled that second attempt. It wasn't really much going anywhere. During the time of the War of 1812, you had the Battle of Borodino. When you compare what was happening, this is, when people listen to Tchaikovsky and his what is it? His orchestra, the what's the word I'm looking for? Anthem, his overture, right? The War of 1812, Tchaikovsky. A lot of people think that he was referencing the American War of 1812, which at that time America was not a superpower. We were a backwater country, and that was a tiny little battle. That was not what Tchaikovsky was. He didn't create his that orchestral masterpiece on that. That had everything to do with the Battle of Borodino. That was Napoleon's war against Russia, where the French were chewed out and spit out. But yet, the casualties were on a magnitude. When you look at the Battle of Borodino, man, I think it was 80,000 dead in the first 8 hours or 12 hours. I mean, it was just a massive, massive bloodletting, suffering, hell, absolute hell. You forward to World War II. You forward to the battle. You start reading about the actual battles. You start reading about German officers and how they detailed the absolute ferocity and hell that was the Eastern Front. And you will understand human suffering on a mass scale. That's why other countries, they shudder and they struggle and wrestle amongst themselves before they commit to any sort of real conflict. Because they understand war truly is hell. It is the absolute pinnacle of human suffering. It is the zenith of human decision making that has broken down. It is the absolute definition of the very worst that humanity could do, and that's war. But we've been insulated from that. We've had the two oceans in World War II that kept us safe. And ever since then, the war has become kind of like a video game. People don't understand this, that, look, we don't have the best military equipment in the world. I can take apart any person who says that. I don't care if you're a defense analyst. I will debate any person and bring them up and take them apart bit by bit. It's a joke what we feel. It's a joke. Our military equipment is not designed to win warfare. It's designed to fleece the taxpayer. And this is what I said earlier in the broadcast. We are dangerous. Why? Because the narrative makers, CJ, the narrative makers, the ones who've been concocting and forming and creating the narrative for the masses to believe. The narrative makers have now begun to believe their own narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the most dangerous phase of a civilization. That is the most dangerous phase for a country to get into, because that is the absolute signal that we're heading for a fall.
Yep.
And how is this going to play out, man? Will there be a strike? No. Will there be like World War III? No. But I'll tell you right now, this signified to the world the preponderance of stupidity, the fact that you cannot trust, you cannot put any sort of confidence into the bumbling, stumbling foreign policy of the United States of America. And what's going to happen is this: we're going to usher in the multipolar world. If the countries are starting to realize the only way to protect yourself now is with nukes.
Yep. Very well said, B. Yeah, I think we have to have the highest regard of life. And that's not always so. We there's a lot to be said, right? As far as who is the largest state sponsor of terror, who's continued the escalation in Yemen, the loss of life there that's constantly occurring. And we have to be able to have these adult conversations and debate these things, because if we don't, we've lost all aspects of everything, of not questioning the actions and ensuring that we are doing everything that we can to protect the people that do bravely volunteer to serve our country. It's more patriotic to question the actions of the government than idly support them. You should be questioning those. That's more patriotic than blindly allowing our troops to go over there. And I have friends, directly commented from my post that lost son in Iraq and everything else like that. And I totally get that. And that's the highest level of service that anyone can do, is that ultimate sacrifice. And I think that we all have to do our part, other than posting on Veterans Day, on Memorial Day, and thanking our troops, is that are we questioning these things? Are we really taking a hard look at these things to preserve? I look at my boys, right? I think everyone should be. That's, yes, I'm sorry that their sons have passed away and that's occurred, and I appreciate that. But are we going to protect future generations from these events unfolding? And that's what we should be taking a look at. And the whole partisan thing and that's taken place is put that aside for a moment, because in part that's what allowed this entire escalation to happen.
Yep.
This has been building up for a long time. This just didn't happen overnight with the troops and where they've been moved to, whether it's moving troops out of Syria into Iraq, whether it's deploying more troops into Saudi Arabia. This has been occurring while we've been, or not us, but the majority of people have been just so fixated on this entire left-right paradigm. They use these things as distraction consistently. And I hope that's even more obvious now with this taking place.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting, man, to see how things will play out. I think the multipolar world will move forward. In order to kill the cabal, you got to wreck the dollar, man. It's the only way to do it. The financial system needs a reordering on a massive scale. I mean, you name it, man. You got the fake numbers coming out from the Dow as we approach Dow 29,000, just as I predicted when everybody was telling you that the market's going to crash.
Yep.
And you know what's jumping, man? Gold is jumping. Dude, what's the gold price at? Let me check real quick.
Yeah, gold, and crypto saw a nice little bump yesterday, and we've had this conversation as well, V, that the powers of weight, they're going to do everything to try to continue that dollar dominance that we know is drifting and going away. We've seen these things. It's all, if you take all the information is directly in front of us. Yep. It's all there right there in front of us. It's just taking these pieces of this puzzle and putting it together. The repos, the millions of dollars are cranked into the banks right now because the flight of the dollar is escalating. The systems are being built for the transition period to happen, and they're going to fight like heck to preserve that dollar dominance. And I think it's even more inevitable now that the times are changing. And they're going to do everything that they can. And if it's war and it's massive casualty and loss of life.
The funny thing is, CJ, what the hell are we going to do? We're going to fly stupid F-35 flying lemons. I'd like to see an F-35 go up against the Iranians. They purchased Russian S-300s, and I think they've also got a few S-400s, if I'm not mistaken. I like to see them go up against the S-300 versus the F-35. My money's on an S-300 missile system any day of the week. Any day of the week. What are they going to do? We're going to float a flotilla of naval ships up the Strait of Hormuz, which is bristling with some of the most advanced Russian-made anti-ship missiles on which we have no defense against. It's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel, man. It's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. And that's a scenario that the idiots in the Pentagon understand very well. They understand this, but the neocons don't. They don't. It's crazy in the siege.
Yep. But we just have to continue to monitor and watch these events unfold. These things that are occurring. It's going to be very, very interesting year.
I think so. I think the next several weeks are going to be very insightful, very interesting to see how things will play out. Again, there's no World War III, none of that crazy crap that people are talking about. You saw the idiot millennials. They crashed the the Selective Services website because they were terrified of the draft.
Yeah, I did see that.
See, on a lighter note, Ricky Gervais, did you see the Golden Globes?
I did, but my opinion's a lot different than everyone else's, unfortunately. I'm always
Why? What happened? I thought it was hilarious, man.
Well, it's hilarious. I love him calling out Epstein. I love him doing that. But, if you don't want to watch the Golden Globes, if you don't watch the shows, don't do it. But at the same time, to be advocating to silence people and telling people just to shut the F up, and their opinion doesn't matter, their opinion doesn't count.
I mean,
isn't that not like in our Constitution that we have the ability to do that. And I saw everyone applauding that. It's like, just take your award. No one cares about your opinion. Get the F out. Everything.
Yeah, that's great, isn't it?
Well, I mean, to a certain extent. I mean,
no, see, he was making fun of the Hollywood idiots, man. These idiots who always have an opinion and they're always virtue signaling.
Yeah, if I was on the wrong side of that, though, would I want someone telling me to shut the F up and not having an opinion about matters? Right? I mean,
yeah, that's what but he prefaced it, man. He's like, these are just jokes, but he really went after the stupid, hypocritical, virtue signaling SJW Hollywood crowd that wants everything banned, everything booed. Because look, like he started off best. He goes, Kevin Hart was supposed to host the Oscars, but they didn't because some virtue signaling SJW found in some tweets he said about homosexuals like 5 years ago. And,
yes,
you know what I'm saying? So that's what he was going after. He was, he's against all the deep. Because think about Gervais is this. He's an old school liberal. Right, so he's against all this anti-platforming, censoring bullshit because it's not good. It's not good. And dude, I thought it was masterful what he's done. He literally went after these virtue signaling idiots. He goes, and look at that, and he definitely specifically went after also like idiots like Robert De Niro, who's always out there running his mouth, saying that you're in no position to say anything to anyone about anything in the world. You don't know what's going on in the real world. Most of you sitting here have less of an education than Greta Thunberg. So you're in no position to teach anybody anything. Just take your award, thank your agent, thank your God, and get the F out. Dude, it was the most beautiful thing. It's what every American was wanting to hear.
Yeah.
Everyone's sick of these Hollywood leftist weirdos. Always lecturing us and save the earth and blah, blah, blah. No, shut up. We don't want to hear your political nonsense. Take your award and shove it. And he said it best. He goes, "No, who watches TV anymore? Nobody watches TV. Nobody will go to the movies. It should be an award from Netflix. Hey, Netflix, you did great. It was brilliant." Well, I have it over here.
No, the Epstein thing was definitely hilarious and calling them out for their relationship with him.
It was so good.
Hello and welcome to the 77th Annual Golden Globe Awards, live from the Beverly Hilton Hotel here in Los Angeles. I'm Ricky Gervais. Thank you. You'll be pleased to know this is the last time I'm hosting these awards, so I don't care anymore. I'm joking. I never did. NBC clearly don't care either. Fifth time. So, I mean, Kevin Hart was fired from the Oscars because of some offensive tweets. Hello? Lucky for me, the Hollywood foreign press can barely speak English. And they've no idea what Twitter is. So I got offered this gig by fax. So let's go out with a bang. Let's have a laugh at your expense, shall we? Remember, they're just jokes. We're all going to die soon, and there's no sequel. So... yeah, remember that. But you all look lovely, all dolled up. You came here in your limos. I came here in a limo tonight, and the license plate was made by Felicity Huffman. So, no, shush. It's her daughter I feel sorry for, okay? That must be the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to her. And her dad was in Wild Hogs. So... lots of big celebrities here tonight. I mean, legends, icons, yeah? Look, at this table alone, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro. Baby Yoda. Oh, that's Joe Pesci, sorry. I love you, man. Don't have me whacked. But tonight isn't just about the people in front of the camera. In this room are some of the most important TV and film executives in the world, people from every background, but they all have one thing in common. They're all terrified of Ronan Farrow. He's coming for you. He's coming for you. Look, talking of all you perverts, it was a big year. It was a big year for paedophile movies. Surviving R. Kelly, Leaving Neverland, Two Popes. Shut up. Shut up. I don't care. I don't care.
I love the look on their faces.
Many talented people of colour were snubbed in major categories. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that. The Hollywood foreign press are all very, very racist. So...
craziness, man. Absolute craziness.
Yeah, see, I didn't catch any of that part. So yeah, that was pretty funny.
I love how he called them all out, man. It was absolutely brilliant. Hold on one second.
Anyway, hey, want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. Appreciate all the comments. We didn't go over a lot, but appreciate the engagement in the chat on YouTube. So thank you all so much for listening. Feel probably can be bouncing in, giving closing comments, and so thank you all. Okay, cool. I was just thanking them for all the comments in the chat room and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, Gervais absolutely wrecked me. It was savage. It was absolutely savage. Folks, go listen to it. We're all out of time here. Siege, thank you for joining me on today. Folks, we'll be back. If you haven't done so already, guys, hit us with a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't done so. This way you're alerted and you know when we're broadcasting next. And again, join the Patreon. And thank you for all the love, your support. Let's make it a great year. It's going to be very interesting, and I think the next several weeks and months, folks, you're going to have it locked here. You don't want the mainstream media BS. You don't want the amateur alt media nonsense. Right here, baby. This is where you get all the analysis from. This is V, and he is CJ.
El Cuco.
And we're over and out. Thanks, guys. Cheers.